Welcome to LYS Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So they're like 16 long.
Yeah, if you've seen it, keep listening. If you don't want to spoil it, come back to it once you've seen a bit of it.
Welcome back to another episode of the LYS Podcast. I am Brenton, and today we're with the LYS Movie Drama Club. We have
Megan.
Connor.
And Josh.
all here hanging out. We're just going to have a bit of a chat about movies and our favourite movies. And we'll start with that. What was your favourite movie that you've seen? Doesn't have to come out, but you've seen in the last 12 months.
Ford vs Ferrari. For me, what done it was the cars. Like, they done pretty well. It was pretty well detailed in the movie with the cars. I loved how they got Matt Damon to play one of the main characters. And then with the movie, there are a few Easter eggs, which I'm not going to spoil.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you really enjoyed it. I haven't seen it still, actually. I know that I said that I wanted to. I'm hoping it comes out on Netflix.
Well, I know you can get it on Google Play, like Google Play Movies and all that. I'm not sure about Netflix and Steam yet, but I'm also pretty sure it's on DVD and Blu-ray.
Chill. Connor?
It's going to be a bit hard to understand, but there's a series they did a movie to finish it off.
Yep.
It's the series is called Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Is that on Netflix?
Yeah.
Yep, I'm pretty sure I saw it there. What did I watch? I watched something recently. Yeah. I think I watched Castlevania or something recently, and it's come up with a few more suggestions. I think I've seen it suggested.
Yeah, and it's very hard to explain sort of storyline, but I'm not going to say what the ending is, but the movie is called End on Evangelion, and just to say this, the end of the original show was like very kind of positive, and he said at the time when it came out in 1996 or something, or over 1998, whatever year it came out, it was criticised. People didn't like the positive ending. So what they made the darkest ending to the series possible. Left it like that. You don't like that? Made it dark. It was really, like, don't get me wrong, the dark ending was amazing, but it was just left on a horrific note, which was really crazy, but still a great show altogether.
Yeah.
So whatever ending you want to decide, basically. The
Right.
positive or the negative.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I like it when writers, like, I don't know, I like it when things have realistic endings. And they're endings that don't, it's not always that, happy note at the end. I think it was Brothers that had, I think it was Tobey Maguire. So it was around a character who was a prisoner of war, and he comes back and he has to deal with all the post-traumatic stress and everything. And they show his progression because he keeps stating doesn't need help. But you watch his progress as he gets worse and worse and worse throughout the last half of the movie. And by the end, essentially he does have a breakdown. And he's all right, but he ends up, getting the help he needs, but it simply ends at that note. Like, he's just getting the help, and he's still not better because those things don't get better straight away. Yeah. And it was just left you feeling like, wow, like, you knew the story was over, but you really left you feeling like you're in the world, because it was like, well, life goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Megan?
Probably Charlie's Angels. It's like the girl power in it.
Yeah.
A lot of criticism to it, which I don't really understand why, because it's such a good movie.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen the remake. I'd seen the originals with Lucy Liu and all of those, but I haven't seen the remake, so...
I haven't seen the originals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, the originals were pretty good. It was Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, and Cameron Diaz were the original three. And then they changed is it Charlie that's on the other side of the box? Something, or maybe it starts with a B. But they changed that character, I think, from the original to the next one. But yeah, I haven't seen the remake though, so it'd be pretty good. I think. So is that what you liked about it? The message?
Yeah, I originally watched it because of Kristen Stewart. But yeah, it was pretty good. It had a twist that you didn't really expect, because it was coming towards the end of the film, and the audience decided that how it was going to end, but then it sort of flipped it. So who you thought was the bad guy wasn't actually the bad guy, and who you thought was the good guy was actually the bad guy.
Yep. And they hadn't like tried to foreshadow it too much, so it was still a yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, I'm a little biased. I could come straight out and say Rise of Skywalker, but I won't.
Yeah.
I won't. I'm going to put Star Wars aside for the sake of being fair.
Can't go wrong with Star Wars.
No, you can't. But for the sake of being fair, I'll leave that alone. We could probably do a whole podcast on Star Wars at some point, I reckon. But I'd probably have to say the Joker.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it, and I wasn't actually that into it.
Really?
Like, being a massive fan of, like, the Batman series with the Joker and all that, the way they portrayed him it didn't seem how he's been portrayed in other movies.
Yeah, that's fair.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah. See, I really liked the fact that they went a gritty, realistic kind of...
Very aesthetic.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful to watch.
It was. And it was... And and what I really liked is how the pace of the movie started really slow, which is the one thing that I've heard a lot of people criticize was the pacing. But the pace slowly picks up the more he descends into madness. Yeah. So the more and more frantic he becomes, the more the pace picks up to match his mental state. And that I was like, whoa.
That's cool.
Yeah, I loved it. Have you seen it, Pete?
No, but I've seen a lot of people using the style with the color grade of it, and like it's a very distinctive color throughout the whole film that you could take like two different stills from each moment and you can tell it's from the same film.
Yeah.
That's very clever the way that they graded it.
Yep. Oh, I think, like I said, it was brilliant. There was nothing, and spoilers, there was so many plots that went kind of nowhere because they were simply all imagined.
Yeah.
Like it was really, and at the end when it all comes out and you're like, whoa, he's imagined all of this. Like there was all these interactions, relationships you thought he was building that were never there. He had imagined them all. And it was so well done. Really, really well done. I absolutely loved it.
What about the scene where he like goes down the stairs and stuff and it's like got the puddles and jam?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got like the fleece behind him.
Yep.
Oh, and he's like sort of smoking.
Yeah, and he's like
cool.
eerily, he's happy, but it's still creepy.
Yeah.
In a way. It actually reminded me of maybe like Silence of the Lambs, where there were moments where Hannibal Lecter was happy, but it was like he was happy in a creepy way. Yeah.
Yeah. You felt positive, but there's so much negative behind it, which sort of creates this sort of emotion that you don't really get the feel that of.
Yeah. It's like you're kind of glad they're happy, but you know that they're happy for all the wrong reasons. And it's like, oh, wow, you know. But no, definitely, I think Joker was one of the best films that I'd seen in a long time. And best in terms of, you know, just everything. I love story, you know, I love, you know, watching characters progress and all of that kind of thing. That's what I pay a lot of attention to in film, and there was just nothing that I could fault it, I don't reckon.
Yeah, just really cool, like, the way actors, like, progress and how currently right now I'm trying to learn a lot of acting stuff at school right now. And it requires a lot of effort, and you got to, like, nearly become the character, like this fake being that's not real, but it's like within you. That's sort of the idea. Yeah,
and you tend to find you get people that consider themselves method actors who try to do that and like inhabit this character, and then you get other people that do kind of compartmentalize it, and it's like, you know, they develop it on their own. There's some really cool acting exercises that you can do if you're playing a part. Like you get together with your fellow actors and hang out in character.
Yeah.
That's something and it's a lot of fun because some of the interactions that start to crop up are just hilarious. But it's something that, you know, I think everybody has an actor in them. I think everybody has that capacity. Again, I think different people lend themselves and different personality traits are more suited for certain characters than others.
Yeah.
But I think everybody's got a bit of an actor in them somewhere.
Yeah, it's cool because, like, when you try it, like, anyone can do it if you try, basically. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and another performer that I really like and I think is really underrated is Andy Serkis. Who's that?
He played Gollum in Lord of the Rings and he played Snoke in the new Star Wars trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
So in Lord of the Rings, he was one of the first times that they'd done that technology where they, like, animate entirely over somebody, and they used the same.
Like CGI.
Yeah, they CGI completely, but it was one of the first times they used that technology where they hook the actor up so it still catches all the facial expressions and everything.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, a brilliant, I think, use of technology, and they didn't overdo it in Lord of the Rings, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I was actually looking in my class for media, we're studying the movie Jaws, right? And we had to do some research on it, and there was this interview with Steven Spielberg, and it was saying, if you could make Jaws, how different would Jaws be if you had CGI nowadays? Because you know how they had a mechanical shark they actually made for the movie.
Yeah.
He actually said it would have ruined the movie with CGI because they would have showed the shark more, and the shark would have been less terrifying.
Yeah. No, I think that is absolutely spot on. I think CGI needs to be used
in a certain way.
Yeah. It has its place.
Yeah.
Same, and again, it's Spielberg with
noticeable.
The T-Rex in Jurassic Park.
Oh yes.
Oh, so the original T-Rex in Jurassic Park was an automatron. Like they actually built it, animatronic. Yeah. So, and I know that there's a scene. I love those little improv scenes where the T-Rex is coming after the kids in the car.
Yeah.
And it's the glass from the top of the car is like pushing down on them. And actually what happened is the glass wasn't supposed to break, but it did. So the kids in the car, they were like kind of screaming because there was glass coming down on them and they hadn't planned it. But that was, again, and I think the reason why, and I actually saw something on YouTube about this a little while ago, and they used Black Panther as an example. Is it Civil War where they first introduced Black Panther?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Like he fights Captain America and he's like exploring the shield. And
Yeah.
you know that part.
Yeah.
They're like on the rooftop.
Yeah. So in that movie, they had all they CGI'd on Black Panther was the suit. So they did like what they did with Andy Serkis in a way. He still had to physically act the movements, and they just animated the suit. Then in the movie Black Panther, which I do love that movie, but my only gripe with it was the combat and the fight between Black Panther and I can't remember his name, but the bad guy. They just completely CGI'd the fight.
Was that like in the part where they're like on the train tracks or something?
Yep. And that whole fight was completely CGI. Yeah. And the problem is when you have full CGI, you lose the characters don't have any weight.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't feel as believable, I guess.
They move in a weightless way, so they don't have, and that's why the T-Rex in Jurassic Park and the shark in Jaws, they move in a much more realistic way because there's weight behind them. You know what I mean? And that's why the T-Rex was so intimidating in that movie. It's still, I think, creepier than any of the dinosaurs that have come since in the Jurassic Park series because it was just so big and bulky and you could see the weight as it was walking and you were like, oh, blimey.
Velociraptor costume they
Oh, yeah.
I saw, they're crazy. They're really believable.
Yeah.
I saw this thing and it was really funny. It was they had like some spare costumes and this guy brought like one of the real costumes from the movie. And he was, I think it was in Japan, he was from Japan. And what he did was he had all these people film this like thing in this office. Like,
I think I've seen that actually. Yeah.
And the guy like
and he's like scaring all his workmates and in the car park and everything.
Yeah.
Like,
to be honest, I would probably have the same reaction as well.
Yeah, I probably would too.
Yeah.
But I think that's an awesome point is that CGI, like the CGI Lord of the Rings is an example of it used really well.
Yeah.
But you know, there are examples and Black Panther, like that was one of the highest grossing movies of all time. I think it's still right up there. And it was an amazing movie. I love the story. I love the acting. That's the one bit I didn't like was that CGI.
Yeah.
And it's kind of similar to, and I know we won't talk too much about Star Wars. We'll probably go on a big thing about it. And I love the prequels. Yes, I think that's a path of its own. But I think it's worth touching on in that as much as the choreography of the fighting in the prequel trilogy was good, and I did like it. It was a similar deal. It wasn't as realistic, I don't think. And that's something I did like about the newer trilogy. It felt more real, I guess.
It's cool because like the way technology can affect, like a lot of CGI can benefit movies a lot. It's just the way you use it. Some movies, like, yeah, they're wide, but just the way sometimes when it comes up on screen, it's not like the same as it does in your head.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Like, here's the problem, like, to be honest, like, you guys probably think about things like, say, you're making an art project or whatever, it relates back to movies. You think of how cool it'll be when you finish. Like, it may still look really cool when you finish, but it's never going to be in the same as your head, unfortunately.
Yeah. And yeah, and I agree. I think it's the same, and it's like with the Black Panther example, where because you don't have someone physically doing it and the muscle movements, we move in a certain way, and that makes it feel so fake and light. It's almost like, what do you know an example, Megan, of technology gone wrong in a movie that you think?
Not that I can think of, but I feel like with all recent events going on, we'll see a lot more CGI and stuff because it's something that editors can do remotely, but it doesn't mean it'll be done well. Because, you have to have reference, and I'm doing motion graphics at school, and it's a similar concept. You've got to think about real life situations, even if you're animating just a circle. You've got to think about if you dropped it from a certain height, how much would it bounce if it's like a lighter ball or a heavier ball, and just the way it moves.
Yeah, I think that's what I was saying about the weight
And how about that Mad Max movie when they were filming it, and the lower budget one?
Oh, the original Mad Max.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an example of relatively budget special effects. I think that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, but like, I get they weren't meant to show the actual truck, but they had that fake truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't I show you that?
Yeah, I think you did kind of.
They had a full metal plate, and they painted all of it. Doesn't even notice until you look at it in slow motion.
Yeah.
Because it's that far thing.
To make it look like the front of the truck, even though as they were hitting it, it was actually a plate in front, and it wasn't the actual truck. Well, it's like Terminator 2, Judgment Day. There's a scene where Terminator jumps off a bridge on a Harley, right? And when you actually go back and watch it, it's a stunt guy wearing a mask because Arnie couldn't do that stunt himself. Yeah. So it's actually a guy just wearing an Arnie mask, A lot of those little things. But I mean, it's really good because Mad Max, doing those little tricks. I think they only painted one side of Max's car. All those awesome little tricks that it does make a big difference. And a lot of the time, like you look at the special effects in a movie like the original Mad Max.
I don't even notice.
No, and for me, that's so much more enjoyable than, and I know, again, this is kind of biased in another way. I'm not a big fan of the Fast and Furious series.
Yeah.
Watching some of that stuff, where you got... there was one scene in one of the movies where The Rock was holding a helicopter with one arm and a car at the other, and all of this unreal. They're dragging a safe through a city and all this stuff that was none of that was behaving the way it should have been behaving. Like physically, the safe and not a great fan.
It kind of went down. I reckon they should have finished at the sixth one. The one where they had the tank and the cargo plane, basically.
Yeah.
And then you know how at the end of that movie they had the huge cargo plane, cars driving off on it, and you felt like the runway was just like And
the runway was the size of a city.
They should finish it, and then they just release more.
Mm-hmm.
More.
And then there's Fast and Furious 9 coming out this year.
I mean, it appeals. I think it's become the American equivalent of James Bond in terms of a franchise.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
They're money hungry.
Pretty much. I mean, if people enjoy it, then, I don't know. I prefer more realistic special effects, more realistic stories, and like not necessarily stories, but like stories that make sense. And that's something with comparing the special effects of something like Fast and Furious and Mad Max, where I just think the stuff they do in those movies is just Mad Max, that's just brilliant.
It's funny, Fast and Furious, first quarter of it's like street race and stuff. It's a car racing film. And we're like, why don't we just do things that aren't physically possible and make it like not related to racing at all?
Yep. that's what gets me a bit when I'm watching Fast and the Furious, because the original movie I loved, actually. The first Fast and the Furious was really good, and I like Tokyo Drift. I know that a lot of people don't like that. I enjoyed it too, because they were good standalone movies. I believe. And the thing is, that's the way I see it, you know. Like, even with James Bond does some ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
But he's James Bond. Like, he's almost a genre onto himself. He's the cornerstone of the spy with all the gadgets. That skill is insane. Whereas with Fast and the Furious, there's, like you said, there's street racers and, you know, street criminals that are now taking on entire governments. And it's like,
Not really today, sort of.
Yeah.
That can't really happen.
That sounds like they're trying to do like a spin-off of Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, kind of. Or the A-Team.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember in class, I was in grade 5, and my teacher, one lesson, showed us all these videos of Mr. T. That's the first time I saw Mr. T. Like, who's this? Like, oh, you don't know who Mr. T is? Like, nah.
He was a WWE wrestler first, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's where he first became famous, but a lot of actors started there, I think.
Yep, John Cena, Batista.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Goldberg.
Dwayne Johnson, the biggest one. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap that up for today. Thanks for having us. I'm Brenton from Space.
I'm Josh.
I'm Colin.
I'm Megan.
And we will catch you next time.